Hey, friends! I'm Jesse Fisco.
And I'm Ambry Fisco.
As founders of several successful businesses, we've experienced absolute joy and satisfaction working together to build our empire.
Our journey started off as a small business idea and has launched into a multi-million-dollar portfolio. It would have never been possible had Jesse and I not understood the key principles of making it all work together. But it has not been easy.
We found ourselves in the trenches trying to balance real life with business life while maintaining our strong commitment to creating an amazing marriage.
And we've emerged in a beautiful way together. This podcast was created to help you do what we've done, build an amazing marriage together while maintaining balance between life and business.
So here we are. You're listening to the Matrimonial Merger, a couple's guide to balancing life and business.
Let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to Matrimonial Mergers. Ambry and Jesse here, and we're really excited to chat with you guys tonight. So, today's actually the 4th of July. What did we do today?
Honestly, I don't really know. We just kind of hung out. I played basketball at 4:30 this morning and ended up taking like a 2.5-hour nap, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it was a solid holiday for us. We got to relax a little bit, do a little bit of cleaning and organizing, and then we took the kids out this afternoon and had some fun. So yeah, good day, and looking forward to now chatting about some awesome truth bombs. Jesse, do you want to introduce our topic today?
I'd be happy to. So today's topic is what if versus what if. So whether it's time to hire your first employee or you're planning a vacation with your kids, I know that one for me is like, that one's always hard. Or maybe you're about to place a large deposit on something you want. We're surrounded by all these decisions. And some of these decisions are a lot larger than others, or they may cost more money. But at each moment we find ourselves asking the question, what if? Have you ever asked yourself that question before?
All the time. Like, all the time, to a fault, honestly. Like, I worry way too much about the what ifs of like every decision I make. And that's something that I'm like constantly trying to shift and change, but it's hard for me.
So it's like asking yourself a question out of fear. And it's kind of like, man, what if I mess up? And I know you guys have had this before. Or what if I lose? Well, you know, what if this is the wrong decision? I'm starting to just really spitball a bunch of these what ifs. These are all just a lot of scary unknown, right? All of this is what pulls you away from the initial decision that got you to this point, or what you ultimately wanted. Ambry and I, as we were writing this episode, I remember very specifically the Lamborghini story, and that's what it's known at. It is our house, is the Lamborghini story. And what it was is Ambry and I, we had a tax write-off. We needed to do something with taxes. And so the idea of buying a supercar came to my mind, specifically a Lamborghini, because growing up as a kid, that was like the car you must have. Everyone talked about Lamborghinis if they were rapping about it, or NBA players had a Lamborghini. So for me, it was this big, grand idea. The idea of this Lamborghini was to buy it in our business's LLC and allow our clients to drive the Lamborghini and create memories. Ambry and I, if you guys know much about us, we love creating memories for people. So what better memory than to hand someone the keys to a 6-figure car and say, have fun. And, so that was the vision here. And I'll never forget, we go to the Lamborghini store. And there's another side story on like how we met one of our really good coaches, but we'll share that for another time at the Lamborghini place. But anyways, we get there and we're just looking at all these cars, mesmerized by the cars, like 6-figure cars. Some of them like high, like what was one, like 700,000?
Yeah, they definitely got up there in price.
And I feel like both of us were kind of like, what the heck? I remember we had our family, so we pull up in this little Toyota Camry looking at these cars. And I just remember going, oh man, this is like way out of my league. But I absolutely had this idea. So the sales guy,
I think you saw the vision like quicker from the get-go. Maybe took a minute to let it sink in, but definitely for me at first, I was just like, this is crazy. Like, what are we doing? What if this is like a terrible decision? What if we lose a ton of money? What if, this doesn't actually go the way we want it to?
I remember all those a lot. And I remember like jumping in the car, and it was kind of a lackluster experience. The sales rep really didn't just like show us the wow factor of the car. So it kind of just like nothing really was great about it. And then there was the stress of like our two kids as well. Like, Trey, don't touch the Lamborghini. And he's over there like, vroom, vroom, like all excited. And Quincy is like, I'm not going to touch it. But what if I touch it? And she was even giving us some of these what ifs. And we'll never forget it. Anyways, it comes down to buying, and we start realizing like, okay, this is real. Like, do we want this car or not? And we ended up saying, hey, well, you know what? We're going to think about it. And there's so many episodes that are coming from this story. We'll have another one as well about making that decision really, really quick and the reason why that's actually good for you. But anyways, we said, hey, we're going to think about this. And so we did, and we went home. And I think the air kind of got taken out of the balloon, so to speak. It instantly led to just a bunch of what ifs, and ultimately kind of led into I wouldn't say a fight, but a disagreement for sure.
Well, like particularly, I remember, I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but it was the night or probably the day after that we went and test drove this orange Lamborghini. And I am not typically one to jump into decisions as quickly. And that's something that I have been working on this year, is just decisiveness and not second guessing myself. But like, because by nature I'm just more cautious and more like of a what if kind of person, I remember definitely sitting there and just like, oh my gosh, like this is a huge decision. Like we should probably really think about all these things and all these what ifs. And what we were sitting in our hot tub one night, and I remember we were just talking about it. And, ultimately I feel like you really ended up a little frustrated because you really wanted this, but our decision and this like vision and dream got clouded by like all of these what ifs, who knows, all these things that weren't even real, but that were created by fear. And yeah, that's what I remember. And then I remember you texting the sales rep and being like, hey, like we're going to pass. And then you were really sad about that. Like you were so bummed about that. And then I was like, oh my gosh, he's really bummed about this. Like I felt kind of bad. And then it was like, okay, let's actually do this. And it turned out good in the long run. But yeah, it was definitely a learning experience.
I think the thing that made that whole situation interesting is like there was this paradigm of me talking to the sales rep, and I'm like thinking 1 minute we're going to do it because we'd have a good conversation, and the next minute I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're actually not doing this. And like I believe very much if you tell someone you're going to do it, you better freaking do it. Like that's important to me. And so I'm over there like now going against my word, saying, oh yeah, I think we're going to do it. Like awesome. Back to, hey man, we're not going to do it. And it was just like this, I don't know, it put me in like a weird situation that at the point it was like, I don't even care anymore. Like I just kind of gave up and walked away from it.
Sidetrack, I will say like that experience, like you mentioned, with that particular experience, it was a little lackluster for what we felt like we were doing. We're like we're buying a car that's over $100,000. Like this better be like a holy cow experience. Like, and we didn't really get that. And I think especially you didn't really get that. And so it was kind of like, okay. Like we didn't feel like our decision was completely solidified anyway. So anyone like who sells something or does sales, like you've got to like not lose that wow factor for any customer. Like could be your 15th customer of the day and you're just kind of like sick of showing that product, but like you have to make it shine for every single person that, shows interest. So
and
tangent.
I think what made it very lackluster is he couldn't or wouldn't allow us to go over 35 miles per hour. And we're like, are you kidding me? So like in first gear, 35 miles an hour happens and like super fast. Like,
yeah, we didn't even get on the like highway or freeway. It was all just like a little road, just a city road.
Freaking sucked. It was like, no disrespect for the sales agent, but he just did not sell the wow factor.
Maybe he wasn't allowed to either. And at that point, it's like, all right, you guys, you're selling supercars. Like,
yeah. I just remember going, well, it's not much different than my Toyota Camry. And so, anyways, kind of a weird tangent there. And it's the truth, though, like Ambry said, is you've got to be able to sell your product and know what that product's fully capable of in order to really get that wow factor. Had we hit that wow factor, no doubt in my mind, we would have both been like, okay, different level. Because when we ended up buying our McLaren, after it was all said and done and finally went back to this, the guy was taking me 65 miles an hour in a residential zone. Like, I felt no, don't do that. He was driving, but like literally I could feel my heart in my throat. Like I was ready to just
the product.
Throw up. It was awesome. Like never experienced that before. So going back to the Lamborghini story, I mean, ultimately it was just a really hard for me. And I think that all of us can find ourselves in that situation where, you know, you're going into something, you have all these dreams and all these aspirations that you want to achieve this certain outcome with it. And then you start clouding your judgment and your thoughts with, what if? Well, what if I wanted to invest in Apple stock 10 years ago? And what if it doesn't make money? What if the iPhone actually isn't as good as everyone makes it sound? And then you lose money. Ultimately, you talk yourself out of that situation and boom, now you're looking at it 10 years later going, man, I probably should have done that, right? There's so many of these scenarios in our lives that every one of us has that it limits us sometimes. And what you choose with that can really impact your future, and it can also impact your confidence.
For sure. I totally agree. Another example that we experienced a few months ago was our real estate team was getting over like 300 lead opportunities per month, which is awesome. But our schedules became so busy that like those leads weren't really a priority. They weren't getting followed up on. And like we noticed that created a hole in our business, and the follow up and contacting leads just like was not happening. And then we're like, gosh, how much business are we potentially missing out on by not actually capitalizing on these leads that we're paying for and that we're like, our marketing is bringing in, but like they're just sitting there. They're just dying in our pipeline. Like nothing's happening. Kind
of the lackluster Lamborghini experience, right? Like they come in and nothing happens, right?
Totally. Like there's no reason for them to stay or to, engage with us because we're literally not. And, Jesse especially started to do some research and look into like some companies that could do follow-up for us. And, ultimately, we kind of decided that most of the companies that we tried or looked into just wouldn't really give like our personal touch on that lead follow-up, which is really important to us. And so the feedback we received led us to just look at hiring internally or hiring like within our network, hiring someone to work just for us. So it wasn't like an ISA or anything like that. And so we started the application process. We put it out on our social media, like, hey, we're looking to hire. Here's what we're looking for. And we received a bunch of applications within our friends and family network. And we got all the way up to that point, even like Jesse interviewed several people, and, we were going through all those steps. And then up to that point, all of a sudden, like all those what ifs started to kick in. Like we literally had taken applications, interviewed people, like we're right there. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what if we don't make enough money to justify this salary investment? Or what if like that happens and we have to let this employee go? What if they don't do a good job? Like, what if this, what if that? And there's so many that we could think of. And then we just spent weeks just kind of talking about the what ifs and not really doing anything. And, that was frustrating. I think, it was just kind of a lull. It's like, okay, we know we want the result of like we know what result we want, but we were so focused on like the negatives of the what ifs.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, like we decided to hire that, but man, was it tough. And I remember going back to some of the people and just saying, you know what, you are like prime time candidate, but I just don't want to hire you and then fire you. And, that was one of the biggest concerns I think we had, as some of these people were quitting jobs and really coming aboard to help our team grow. And they seemed like they were more prepared than what we were prepared for. And because of that, kind of that feedback and the things that happened, it really started to diminish what we viewed. But luckily, we found someone that, needed an opportunity and needed something to shine. And honestly, probably one of the best hires we've made. We've made quite a few, and this one, she just came right through the gates, ready to go. And what had happened is the day we hired her, literally like within 3 hours, she had followed up with a lead, and that lead was like, yeah, actually, I want to go see this house right now. And so we ended up showing him the house. 3 hours later, that individual is under contract, and Ellie, who's the one that we hired, she's amazing. Shout out to Ellie, by the way. She made $10,000 for our company within 3 hours of work. And that was like, holy crap. Like, I remember just like celebrating, going, this can't be real, right? Like, I even still had negative beliefs of like, is this even happening? And it was unreal to see that. And then her confidence beamed as well.
And like, this is also a good example and learning experience for us. Like, we're constantly learning and growing. But even in this situation, ultimately we made the hire, but like the basis that we made that hire on was like, hey, this is like a trial period. Like, we want to test this out. Like, we were doing what we wanted. We were making the hire, but we weren't like just going all in. Like, you're hired. Here's your salary. Like, we're really looking forward to like the next several years or whatever. We were kind of like, let's see how this goes. Which ultimately, thank goodness, like it's all gone awesome. And like, we've really created a great thing out of it. But like, I think next time, learning from this experience, we'll go into it like, yeah, this is what we want and this is what we're going to get out of it, and not be like, let's test this out first. Like, we're just going to go all in. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Jesse touched on earlier that we'll have an upcoming episode about, those decisions and how the timeliness of them is so important. And it's a constant thing that we all have to put into practice.
I think the biggest thing, like looking back at it even now, and this hire happened 2 months ago, and there's been a lot of growth since then. Like, as we've continued to grow our business and make massive changes, when it came to hiring our video guy, it was a no-brainer. Like, it literally was easier to hire at that point.
True.
And so, like, these things change, and you have to allow yourself to change. But like, what we learned there, in that whole situation with that hire and hiring Ellie, is that we would have missed out on this opportunity had we continued to just look at it as, oh man, what if we can't actually pay her? What if this doesn't work? The thing is like, we knew that it takes, in sales, with any sales job or anything in general, it takes consistent follow-up. Like, you have to consistently follow up with your spouse during the dating period to have him or her be your spouse. Like, you've got to text, you've got to engage, create a relationship. So even though it was like one of those like science has shown type of things, like, it was still hard because we're like, oh my gosh, like, this is difficult to make this hire for doing something that we already know the outcome. We knew it was going to happen. We just didn't know how quickly. And I think that's ultimately what was kind of the fear there. So that was the first thing we learned, is like, we would have missed out on this opportunity. And then number two, we would have limited ourselves by not taking the risk. And I think that one was huge for me, because after that hire, it was like the center point for our team, because all of a sudden it became, okay, Ellie is now following up, and then we're moving it over to some of our agents to go show the properties. And it literally changed the whole scope of how like we were able to do business. And it led to us going on a vacation for the first time in 5 years. Like, that was one of the repercussions, or one of the benefactors of being able to hire and make this. And we didn't even know. That was what was really cool to me.
Totally. And just to clarify, like going on a vacation, like actually going on a vacation, like we've gone on vacations in the last 5 years, but end up like answering phone calls and emails and writing offers and working the entire time and like spending all this money to go on a vacation, but not actually relaxing and vacationing. And like at this point, like built to a point by, changing some of those what ifs or ignoring some of those what ifs, we created a situation where we could go on a vacation and unplug like 10 times more than we ever had before and actually rely on, our team and put that trust and confidence in them. And that was huge for us.
I think what was so interesting by that is like Ambry was saying, we'd go and we would just work and it would be like, holy cow, why are we working? Like, well, because we need money. All right, great. Well, why do we need money if we're not enjoying these vacations? I mean, we have a real estate company that pushes close to 7 figures every single year, but no time to enjoy it. And that was difficult for us because it was like, oh, cool, yeah, we could go on this excursion, on this cruise. We could spend whatever we wanted. We had the resources financially to do it. But then it was like, well, what if someone calls us? Oh, man, we got to skip out on that because it's even those what ifs and the negatives still. It was like holding us back from actually enjoying vacations. And it was very similar to a talk that I had heard about going on a cruise and eating a can of beans the entire time because you didn't know the food was like available and free. So dwelling on what ifs in our decision delays our success and dampens our forward progress. And it literally causes your unconscious mind to look for that outcome.
So speaking of the unconscious mind, what if we told you that you can actually just shift this habit and make it work in your favor? So keep the habit, keep asking yourself, what if? But we're going to teach you how you can shift that and ask yourself, what if, but completely change the outcome of your decisions. So here's the deal. Jesse, what does the unconscious mind think about negatives?
So you have two parts to your brain. You have your conscious mind and you have your unconscious. And your unconscious is like your crew that steers the ship, and the conscious mind's the captain. So I just wanted to like separate the two real quick for those that don't understand what we're talking about. But we're talking about the unconscious mind right now. The issue is your unconscious mind does not interpret it negative. It only interprets positive thinking. So if you're over there going, hey, I want to stay up late, or I don't want to stay up late, your unconscious mind interprets it and says, hey, I want to stay up late. So naturally, you're going to get the result that you do not want because your unconscious mind, like that crew, imagine like, we're going to backtrack real quick. Imagine your crew, you're like, hey, I don't want you to go left. And your crew couldn't take negativity or like the don't and process that. So imagine you saying that and then all of a sudden you end up left and off course. That's what your unconscious mind is doing. And it's because it cannot process the don't that you say, I don't want this. Well, it's going to naturally give you what you don't want. And that's what's so interesting about your brain.
Yeah, I actually find this so fascinating because I think this simple shift can make such a huge impact in our life. And, maybe a little easier said than done. Just, shifting habits can take time, but it really is so simple. And once you hear this and understand this, like you'll find yourself going throughout your day and you'll think of something, what if in the negative, and then you'll be like, oh my gosh. And you'll remember this. And then like one thing at a time, like you will shift this process and reprogram your mind to, only think in the positive. So like, for example, the example Jesse shared of like, I don't want to stay up late. Well, your unconscious mind only hears stay up late, not I don't want to, just stay up late. So what you would need to like say instead is like, I want to go to bed at 9:00, or I want to turn right instead of I don't want to turn left, right? Like you have to shift it to the positive rather than the negative. So instead of looking for resources to stay up late, your mind is now focusing on and looking for resources to go to bed on time, whatever time that is for you. So by thinking like in the negative sense of the what ifs, you're actually programming your unconscious mind to literally give you that result that you're trying to avoid, which sucks. Don't do that. I mean, I think we all find ourselves doing this just because, whether it's the fear of failure or fear, whatever that fear is, like that's sometimes like our natural response. But we're literally creating the result that we want to avoid, which I think is really interesting, Jesse, because like I can think of so many times when like if something goes wrong or something happens that I didn't want, and I think like, oh my gosh, I knew this was going to happen. Like I just knew this would happen. Or, oh my gosh, thank goodness that we prepared for this outcome. And it's like, well, yeah, because we literally created this outcome. Like, of course this happened. Of course we knew this was going to happen. Like that's what we created to happen, like in our mind.
I think like as a father, I grew up in a pretty weird situation where my dad would yell a lot and also be kind of abusive in some cases. And so I frequently, and I'm still trying to catch myself on this, say, I don't want to be like my dad. Well, today I had a situation where I ended up reacting very similar to the way that my dad would react. And I was looking at it going, oh, I don't want this. I don't want this. And then I realized it's because I keep saying I don't want this result. Instead of saying I want to change how I handle this situation, I'm over there saying I don't want to be like the person that showed me the example of handling conflict and handling contention. And that ended up ultimately like being that aha moment for me going, okay, I've got to change my line of thinking. And what's interesting about this too is like, I look at it as a tree, Ambry. Like if you say what if in the negative, the only thing is down, right? And so it's just the trunk of the tree. Whereas if you start to branch out and say what if in the positive, then you start finding more what ifs. Okay, so like let's break down the Lamborghini story. Instead of going, oh, what if this, we can't afford it? What if it's too expensive? Blah, blah, blah. How do we say, what if this Lamborghini makes us, 10 times the investment of what we paid for it? What if this Lamborghini can help us write down our taxes so that we don't have to pay as much taxes? What if we meet some really cool people that introduce us to even more cool people, that introduce us to more cool people, and we grow our network because of this car? And all of a sudden, as you guys can start to see the branch just start going out. And I could go on and on and on, like this is not scripted. Like the more I continue to think about it, the more I'm like selling myself on buying a Lamborghini again. And that's ultimately what the what ifs do. And then all of a sudden you walk away with this like sense of pride, like, heck yes, there's no reason why I shouldn't do this. I need to do this. And by doing something different than what you're comfortable with, ultimately, you're going to be getting a lot of feedback, both in the positive and negative, but that feedback allows you to grow. And by growing, you literally now becoming a creator of a higher destiny. Imagine saying like, what if I take this shot in a basketball game? What if I change my diet? And what if I, when I'm faced with this, what if I react this way? And don't even say instead of, just what if I react this way? Now imagine let's say your daughter comes up and kicks you in the crotch, like that happened today. Instead of yelling or getting frustrated, now you're reacting the way you truly want to react, even in the sense of the pain or whatever the situation is. Now you're reacting the way you want, and your outcome, like Ambry said, because you already kind of know what that outcome is going to be, because you're telling your brain like, this is what I want, this is what I truly want. Now imagine being able to see that and feel a sense of like, man, I'm really changing, I'm really doing something that I really want to see in my life change. And that's what's super cool about this, is by saying what if in the positive, you're literally predicting and creating that scenario that you truly, truly want before it happens.
Totally. And I think like you mentioned back to the Lamborghini story, like all of the positive what ifs, and that's really what we started that like decision based off of. Like we didn't start looking at Lamborghinis with the negative what ifs in mind at all. Like we wouldn't have started looking at them. And so it's like stick to those, like the why, the reason, what you want versus like allowing those negative what ifs to start clouding your mind. If it's something you truly want and something you truly feel is like going to make a positive impact, whatever it is, you got to focus on those positive what ifs. So keep that what if habit, just shift it from negative to positive, and that makes such a huge impact on the outcome of what you actually receive from the decisions that you make.
Just to add on to that, the quote that I love right now is, where focus goes, energy flows. So if you're focusing on something positive, that energy is going to flow towards the positive, and that result has a higher likelihood of actually happening. And how cool is that? Like, man, everything I do, everything I touch, everything I say is positive and makes an impact, and I change people's lives and I change my lives because I want this in my life. Like, that's really cool. This is something we're doing with this podcast, and like the results we want is for you guys as an audience to really grasp and understand that it's your life and you can go create whatever you want. And all you have to do is start changing the small, subtle things that will help bring bigger results in your life.
Yeah. And just quick compliment to Jesse, because I think this is something that naturally you are pretty good at, like just making quick, solid decisions, and then like just focusing on making it happen and not focusing on like the negative and the negative what ifs. Like those aren't typically your natural response. And I remember a few months ago, one of our friends posted something on Facebook, and you had mentioned something like, yeah, let's go start this business together or something. And he made the comment back like, yeah, Jesse, everything you touch turns to gold. And like, there's a lot to be said about that, because, when you are living in a way that you like, don't let doubt and fear and those negative what ifs cloud your judgment and cloud your path, if you will, like you get what you want. Like you get that positive outcome that you're focusing on, because you're not sitting there like dwelling on the negative what ifs. Like, what if I reach the stars? What if I actually succeed at this? What if I, don't freak out when my spouse does this or that? What if I don't like get offended? What if I assume that this person, especially your spouse, is actually trying to do his or her best? Like, what if I assume that their intentions are actually good? And yeah, I think that that's super powerful, and we've definitely seen it in our life. But yeah, Jesse, you're really good at that.
I appreciate that. And I'm going to compliment Ambry as well, not just because I feel obligated.
Oh,
but
now we're getting all mushy.
all mushy here. Ambry's very good at reminding me the what ifs. When I start to get a little negative, because everyone does, it's normal. She's really good to remind me to say, hey, like, what if in the positive? So I think Ambry needs to give herself a lot more credit too, because she does an amazing job at this as well. So the what ifs that we have today is, what if you guys leave us a 5-star review, and what if this actually goes further and touches more lives, and what if this podcast becomes essential for you guys every single week to listen to? Those are our what ifs, and that's what we want to invite you guys to do today, is leave us a 5-star review on our podcast. More importantly, this exercise can change you in about 5 seconds. So when you do this exercise, DM us as fast as you can at Visco Frenzy on Instagram, because we want to hear this. Like, we want to hear all of a sudden the change and the positive thoughts. And once again, like the 5-star review, what if you guys leave a 5-star review and this gets bumped up on the algorithms and allows someone else to listen to it that needs it just as much as you did?
I love it. And like, seriously, we love hearing from you guys. So keep sending us messages. We love getting the tags on Instagram or wherever you're social, and let us know your experiences. Let us know like maybe something you learned or something that stood out to you. Seriously, we love that. Like maybe sounds a little bit like crazy, but like we are so passionate. We love attention. Yeah. We also just love like we're like a little like 1-year-old. It's just like, look, I did a somersault. Look at me. No, really though, like people is why we do everything we do. Like from day one, like anything that we've ever aspired for, like it's because people and like growing and connecting with this community means a lot to us. And we look forward to like having events and doing things. And anyways, so just hearing from you guys, like literally makes our days. So if you are in the business of liking to make other people's days, send us a message or tag us something that stood out to you or that you learned. And we're really excited to hear from you.
You might even get a handwritten thank you card from me because I just love engaging with people, and I'm sure Ambry will sign it too. But
I might sign it.
You might
if
sign
you're
it.
Lucky.
No, I'll be like, Ambry, sign this, and she'll be like, "What's that?" I'll be like, "It's just something.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it." And then
it might be a new LLC I'm signing on. I don't even know.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Look forward to coming back with more cool content next week. And I'm super excited. Like, we are just scratching the surface. Next week's episode is going to be amazing.
It's going to blow your mind.
It's going to help. Like, and all of these things are compounding on each other. Like, within 12 weeks, your whole life's going to change. And what would that look like for you?
Totally.
Imagine if, like, you just were unstoppable and could change anything you wanted at the flip of a switch. What kind of power would you have?
What if you had the kind of life you want?
In 12 weeks.
But literally, it's your life, so go create it.
Go create it. Thanks for listening. You all have a fantastic week.
See you later.